I still remember the exact moment I realized I was in trouble. Not the dangerous kind of trouble, the kind that changes everything. The kind that makes you question every single thing you thought you knew about yourself, about love, about what you're supposed to want. Her name was Catherine, and she was my boss's neighbor. I was 24 years old, fresh out of college, working my first real job in marketing, thinking I had the world figured out. She was 50, recently divorced, and she had this way of looking at you that made you feel like she could see straight through every defense you'd ever built. And God, did she make me ache for her? It started innocently enough. My boss was throwing one of those summer barbecues where everyone from the office shows up with their families, their significant others, trying to pretend we all actually liked each other outside of work. I wasn't dating anyone at the time, so I showed up alone, already planning my exit strategy within the first hour. That's when I saw her across the yard, standing by the garden with a glass of wine in her hand, watching everyone with this amused, knowing smile. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't dressed to attract attention. But there was something about her presence that pulled me in like gravity. Our eyes met for just a second, and she gave me this slight nod, like she was acknowledging something we both understood but hadn't spoken yet. I didn't know what it was then. I just knew I needed to talk to her. I grabbed a beer and walked over, trying to play it cool, try to be the confident young guy who had his life together. Great party, right? I said, immediately cringing at how generic that sounded. She turned to me with those eyes, deep, warm, with little lines at the corners that somehow made them even more beautiful, and smiled. Is it? I haven't decided yet. Her voice was soft but direct, with this hint of playfulness underneath. I'm Catherine. I live next door, and you must be one of the eager young professionals Tom keeps telling me about. That's me, I said, laughing nervously. Jack, though I'm not sure about the eager part. More like confused and try not to mess up too badly. She laughed then, a real laugh, not the polite kind people give at these things. Honesty. I like that. Most people your age are so busy trying to look like they have everything figured out. And people your age? I asked before I could stop myself. She raised an eyebrow, still smiling. We've lived long enough to know that nobody has anything figured out. We just get better at pretending. That conversation lasted 3 hours. We talked about everything. Work, life, what we wanted, what disappointed us, what scared us. She didn't talk down to me, didn't treat me like some kid who couldn't possibly understand real life. And I didn't try to impress her with some manufactured version of myself. For the first time in a long time, I just was, and it felt incredible. When the party started winding down, she touched my arm, just a light touch, barely anything, and said, "This was nice, Jack. Thank you for the conversation." I drove home that night thinking about her. Not in the way I'd thought about women my age, where it was all about attraction and possibility and what might happen next. This was different, deeper, like she'd opened a door I didn't know existed, and now I couldn't stop thinking about what was on the other side. I started finding excuses to be at my boss's house. I'd volunteered to drop off documents, to help with projects that required face-to-face meetings. And somehow, I'd always end up running into Catherine. She'd be gardening, or getting her mail, or sitting on her porch with a book. And we'd talk, sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for an hour. She told me about her marriage, how she'd spent 25 years building a life with someone who eventually stopped seeing her as a person and started seeing her as a fixture. She told me about rediscovering herself after the divorce, about the freedom and the loneliness that came with it. I told her about my fears of becoming just another corporate drone, about feeling like I was supposed to have all these answers about my future when I barely understood my present. She listened in a way no one ever had before. She didn't try to fix me or give me advice. She just understood. 3 months after we met, she invited me over for dinner. Nothing fancy, she said. Just 2 friends sharing a meal. But we both knew it was more than that. The air between us had been charged for weeks. This unspoken thing growing stronger every time we were together. I showed up with a bottle of wine, my hands actually shaking as I knocked on her door. She answered wearing a simple dress, her hair down, no makeup needed because she was already beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with trying. "Come in," she said, and her voice had a slight tremor that told me she was nervous too. Dinner was perfect, not because the food was extraordinary, but because being with her felt like the most natural thing in the world. We laughed, we debated, we challenged each other. And then, as we were clearing the dishes, our hands touched over a plate, and we both froze. "Jack," she said softly, not moving her hand away. "What are we doing?" "I don't know." I admitted, my heart pounding. "But I know I've never felt like this before. With anyone." She looked up at me, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. "You're 24. I'm 50. People will." "I don't care what people will think," I interrupted. "Do you feel this? This thing between us?" She was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Every single day. It terrifies me." "Why?" "Because you make me feel alive again," she whispered. "And I'm afraid of what happens when you realize you could have someone younger, someone who fits better into the life you're supposed to want." I took her hand, holding it gently. "Catherine, I don't want what I'm supposed to want. I want this. I want you. Not because of some fantasy or rebellion or whatever people might think. Because when I'm with you, I'm more myself than I've ever been. You see me. Really see me. Do you know how rare that is?" Her eyes filled with tears, and she touched my face with her free hand. "You see me too. Not as someone past her prime, not as someone who's supposed to fade into the background. You see me as I am." That's when I kissed her. Slowly, carefully, like something precious I was afraid of breaking. She kissed me back with a passion that took my breath away. 26 years of living behind it, every lesson learned, every heartbreak survived. It wasn't the fumbling, uncertain kiss of someone my age. It was deliberate, knowing, full of promise and danger, and everything I'd been aching for. We pulled apart, both breathing hard, and she smiled through her tears. "This is complicated. I know. People won't understand. I know. You're going to break my heart, Jack." I shook my head. "No. I'm going to love you in a way you've never been loved before. Because you deserve that. Because I've been waiting my whole life to feel this way about someone." That night changed everything. We started a relationship that existed in the spaces between other people's opinions, between society's expectations, between what we were supposed to want and what we actually needed. She taught me things no one my age could have taught me. Not just in the bedroom, though, God, yes, that too. She knew exactly what she wanted, how to communicate it, how to make every moment feel like an exploration rather than a performance. But more than that, she taught me about patience, about being present, about the difference between connection and just passing time with someone. I learned that maturity isn't about age. It's about being willing to be vulnerable, to communicate, to show up as your full self. She'd done the work on herself that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. She knew her worth. She knew her boundaries. And she knew how to love someone without losing herself in the process. We kept our relationship quiet at first. Not because we were ashamed, but because we wanted to protect it from other people's judgments, from the inevitable whispers and raised eyebrows. My friends didn't understand when I stopped showing up to bars, stopped swiping on dating apps, stopped being available for the casual hookup culture they were all swimming in. They'd ask who I was seeing, and I'd deflect, knowing they wouldn't get it. Her friends were more supportive, but even they had concerns. "Are you sure he's not just going through a phase?" They'd ask her. "What happens when he wants children? Wants someone who can grow old with him?" She'd defend me, defend us, but I knew the questions bothered her. Late at night, she'd sometimes turn to me with worry in her eyes and ask if I was sure, if I really understood what I was choosing. And every single time, I'd hold her close and tell her the truth. "I'm choosing you. Not an age, not an idea, not a fantasy. You, Catherine, the woman who makes me laugh, who challenges me, who sees through my nonsense and loves me anyway. That's what I'm choosing. The hardest part wasn't the age difference itself. It was navigating a world that wasn't built for relationships like ours. When we go out to dinner, people would assume she was my mother until I'd take her hand or kiss her cheek, and then their expressions would change. Some looked scandalized. Some looked intrigued. Some looked away quickly, like they'd witnessed something inappropriate. Catherine would squeeze my hand under the table, and I'd squeeze back, our own silent language that said we're in this together, no matter what they think. 6 months into our relationship, I met her daughter, Emma, who was actually 2 years older than me. That was surreal and awkward and surprisingly wonderful. Emma was protective at first, skeptical of my intentions, asking pointed questions about what I wanted from her mother. But Catherine had raised her right. She was smart, direct, and ultimately fair. After a long dinner where I was thoroughly grilled, Emma pulled me aside and said, "I haven't seen my mom this happy in years. Maybe ever. If you hurt her, I'll destroy you. But if you're real, if this is real, then you have my blessing." It was real, more real than anything I'd ever experienced. Catherine showed me what it meant to be with someone who was secure in themselves, who didn't play games, who didn't need constant validation or reassurance. She had her own life, her own interests, her own friends. She didn't need me to complete her. She wanted me to complement her. There's a huge difference. And yes, she knew exactly how to make me ache for her. Not just physically, though the way she'd look at me across a room, the way she'd touch my arm when she wanted my attention, the way she'd whisper what she wanted late at night. All of that drove me absolutely wild. But the real aching came from the emotional intimacy. From the nights we'd stay up talking about our fears and dreams. From the way she'd call me out when I was being stubborn or short-sighted, not to win an argument, but because she genuinely cared about my growth. From the mornings I'd wake up next to her and feel this overwhelming gratitude that this woman, this incredible woman, had chosen to let me into her life. People ask me if the age difference ever bothers me. They ask about the future, about what happens as we get older, about whether I'll regret not being with someone my own age. And here's what I tell them. Every relationship has an expiration date. None of us knows how long we have. Some couples get 50 years together and never really know each other. Some get 5 years and experience more love and understanding than most people find in a lifetime. Catherine and I decided we'd rather have something real and finite than something conventional and hollow. Now, 2 years later, we're still together. We stopped hiding. I moved into her house last year, and we're building a life that's ours, not anyone else's definition of what it should be. My family took some time to accept it, but they came around when they saw how happy I was, how much I'd grown. Her ex-husband still doesn't understand, but that's his problem, not ours. Am I afraid sometimes? Sure. I'm afraid of losing her, of the years passing, of all the things we can't control. But I'm not afraid of loving her. That's the easiest, most natural thing I've ever done. She taught me that love isn't about checking boxes or following a prescribed path. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be better, who sees you at your worst and chooses to stay, who makes ordinary moments feel extraordinary just by being there. She was 50, I was 24 when we met. Now she's 52, and I'm 26. The gap hasn't closed, but it matters less than it ever did. Because we're not an older woman and a younger man. We're Catherine and Jack. We're two people who found each other when we weren't looking, who took a chance on something society told us wouldn't work, and who proved that real connection doesn't care about the numbers on your birth certificate. She still makes me ache for her. Every single day. With a look, with a laugh, with the way she understands me before I even understand myself. And I hope I make her ache for me too. Not because I'm young, but because I love her with everything I am. Because I choose her, over and over again, with full knowledge of what that choice means. That's what real love is. Not the absence of complications, but the willingness to navigate them together. Not the perfect fairy tale, but the beautiful, messy, complicated reality of two people deciding that what they have is worth fighting for. So yeah, she knew exactly how to make me ache for her. And I wouldn't have it any other way. You know, sharing this story with you means everything to me. Because I know some of you out there have experienced something similar, or maybe you're going through it right now. That unexpected connection that society tells you shouldn't exist, but your heart tells you, is the most real thing you've ever felt. So I want to ask you something. Do you believe that age can really stop true love? Have you ever felt a connection so powerful that it made you question everything you thought you knew about relationships? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories inspire me more than you know. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and reminds them that love has no age limit, no expiration date, no rules except the ones we write ourselves. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because I share new stories every single day. Real stories about real love between older women and younger men. Stories that prove connection and passion don't fade with time. They deepen with understanding. We're building a community here of people who believe in love without boundaries, who understand that the heart wants what it wants, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Join us. Your story matters. Your love matters. And together, we're proving that true love has no age. I'll see you tomorrow with another story. Until then, keep believing in the power of unexpected love.